Welcome back, everybody, to the 1987 Supermod. I'm your host, Brad Drake, and this is Championship Wrestling from Florida. All right, since the last show that we had regarding CWF, I did some research. I was working actually on version 9. Believe it or not, I know version 8 just came out, but I've been doing a lot more research and working on version 9, and I've been going through all the companies to verify that the rosters are correct for May 1st, 1987. And what I found through my sources as far as Championship Wrestling from Florida went is that the roster was not correct. So I don't want to do a save with an incorrect roster. So what I did was that I went through and updated the roster based on who was in Championship Wrestling from Florida as of May 1st, 1987. So the game has been updated and edited so it's accurate. And I've actually gone through and done spreadsheets for all the major promotions in the game with their actual starting rosters so that it's all historically accurate. And if I decide to do saves in the future with these other promotions, I will use one of these spreadsheets. So, for example here, let's check it out. We had the Cuban Connection. The Cuban Connection were actually not in Championship Wrestling from Florida at the time. Another example was Steve Armstrong. We had him as the Falcon. Steve Armstrong was actually unmasked, and he was Steve Armstrong, and he was tagging with his tag team partner, which was Tracy Smothers. So some other interesting things here, and some of you may not be familiar with the term hot-shotting. What the term hot-shotting means as far as pro wrestling goes is that you are throwing your biggest and best in a hurry to try to drum up as much money, as much popularity, as much publicity as possible for your promotion. For example, Ron Fuller, who managed owned and ran Continental Championship Wrestling, which was previously Southeastern, and then he sold Continental, that became Continental Wrestling Federation. Then he opened up Championship Wrestling USA. Anyway, Ron Fuller is part of the Welch family, and the Welch family has been accused over the years of buying a territory, hot-shotting the territory for a certain length of time, and then selling the territory, and then the territory would fall apart and they would end up closing their doors. In the case of Ron Fuller, that's pretty true. He did that with Continental, and then he sold it, and then within a year, Continental folded, and then he did a similar thing with Championship Wrestling USA. So in the case of what's going on here in Championship Wrestling from Florida as far as May 1987, Crockett is hot-shotting Championship Wrestling from Florida in an attempt to revitalize the territory and make money. In the long run, it didn't work, and within a few months, he gave up on it. But that is where we're at this period on May 1st. This is why you see names such as Ric Flair, Lex Luger, Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude, who were the World Tag Team Champions at this time, were brought in to defend the World Tag Team title. You'll see also, Dusty Rhodes, the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll Express. They are all in Championship Wrestling from Florida at this time in an attempt to hotshot. So what I want to show you is that I made this historically accurate. Okay, I took a look at how long these wrestlers were in the territory for. And the guys that were only in for a couple shots, they're only in for a couple shots. Okay, so it's up to you if you're going to play this game to try to extend their loan, but it may or may not work. So, for example, right here, you got the Road Warriors. They're going to be around here for another 30 days. Okay, Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton, same thing. They're going to be around for about 30 days. Okay, some other mistakes that were made that were not accurate. Dory Funk Jr. wasn't on the roster at this time. Dory Funk Jr. was on the roster, and he was a very impressive and very important heel to what was going on here in Championship Wrestling from Florida. Also, some things like Ed Gantner. Ed Gantner at this time was actually a babyface. He had turned babyface. So we have that represented properly in the save. So these things have been fixed. The holes in the boat, so to say, have been fixed, and it is now historically accurate. If we go ahead and take a look at our tag teams, you'll see things are more in proportion. That's because it's actually realistic here. Ed Gantner was actually tagging with Kendall Windham at the time. The Southern Boys, of course, were baby faces. The Sheepherders were just fresh into the territory here. Graham and Kern, of course, were still around. They were the Florida Tag Team Champions. And the other side, I forgot to mention that they also brought in Ivan Koloff and Vladimir Petrov at the time to tag. So the Russians are there in Florida. And of course, you got Kevin Sullivan, who was incorrectly labeled as a face in the last version. He's now correctly labeled as a heel, and he's actually doing a lot of tag matches with the Tahitian Prince, who's actually Samu, okay, part of the Samoan family. So this is the state of affairs with Championship Wrestling from Florida, and things have been, corrected and fixed and properly the way they should be. And what you're also going to find here when version 9 is eventually released, which could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 6 days, could be 6 weeks. You just never know when it's going to be released. But I brought in a bunch more wrestlers. I've been spending a lot of time researching and going over the World Wrestling Association out of Indianapolis. So I made sure to create a lot of those wrestlers and bring them to the game, such as Abdullah the Great. AJ Petruzzi, whose real name was actually AJ Petrucci. He was actually out of the WWF at this point, and he had some really interesting alter egos. He was known as Super Destroyer #1 later on in Eastern Championship Wrestling. He tagged with his partner's name escapes me at this time, but he did that, and they were very successful. He also wrestled as Executioner number one in 1988 in Crockett, where he tagged with Ron Shaw as Executioner number 2. And some interesting stuff I learned that I didn't know. He was also very good friends with Ron Shaw. He was very good friends with the other enhancement talents in the WWF, Mario. His name, I can't remember his name right now. I just listened to a really good shoot interview with him. It was terrific. So let's continue to go down here, and you can see what we're dealing with here and other people that we've brought in. I'm going to cut this down so it's easier to see wrestler, USA, and of course, male. We brought in some legends here, and of course, some of them are signed with their respective promotions. Got rid of the doubles. Jeff Crimley had a couple doubles. We got rid of those. Raul Amata, he was already in the game. I was thinking of his brother, Carlos. We got Carlos's title history worked out, so it's proper. A lot of little stuff like this. For example, there's Ron Shaw, and of course, Ron Shaw has his alter ego. So if you want to bring them into your game, your save, you can. Makes things easy. We brought in Rooster Griffin. He was a manager / wrestler in the WWA. He wasn't very good, but if you're looking for an enhancement talent, he's a good guy to have as an enhancement talent. Sputnik Moreau, of course, was already in the game. The Kentucky Butcher's been added. Another huge guy that was in the WWA. He was awful, by the way. The Hangman, who was a enhancement talent there. Actually, they used him as a regular wrestler in the WWA, but he's another opportunity for you for a decent enhancement talent wrestler. All right. So we got a bunch of cool stuff here. Let's take a look at California Championship Wrestling. And I went on to learn that it was actually the, what the heck? Why isn't the promotion here? Oh, California Pro Wrestling. There it is. California Championship Wrestling was the name of the television show. It was actually The promotion was called California Pro Wrestling. So we got that fixed. We got the titles properly named. And if you remember, there was a horrible picture of Victor Rivera in the game where he looked like he was 75 years old. This is a picture of Victor Rivera actually from a California Championship Wrestling show in 1986. That's what the guy actually looked like. He didn't look like the old man. So we got his picture fixed. Also, Chief J. Strongbow Jr., who I thought was Mark Young, was not. He was actually his own wrestler. So we got that fixed up and we got that figured out. I'm trying to see if anybody else here. Tony Rocco, we added Tony Rocco to the game. Tony Rocco was the real deal. Like, I understand that he's old here. He's at the end of his career, but this guy could really go. He was a technical wizard. So we've just made all these little adjustments that needed to be made. And, yeah, just little stuff like that was fixed. Another big one here is that what was known as WWC, World Wrestling Council, did not become World Wrestling Council until the 90s. It was known as Capital Sports Promotions. Okay, so I fixed it. I fixed Capital Sports Promotions, changed the name so it's got the proper name, and I went ahead and went through all the titles. Can you believe it? This is actually all the live titles that they had in May 1986. I'm sorry, May 1987. They had this many titles in their promotion. So I made sure that they're all in the game, that they're all accurate. I got as many real pictures as I could, such as the Caribbean heavyweight title and the North American titles. I did the best I could to get the real pictures. Some of them you just can't find. I also went through and made sure that we had an accurate roster. And then, of course, I put the retired titles in there too, like the Caribbean tag team. So, it's important that you see stuff like this and you see the wrestlers that held these titles. Invader number 4 is in the game here. He's unemployed. His name escapes me at the moment, but I'm sure if I scan through here, I'll pick up on him. He's in the game now. And I did the best I could to make the roster accurate there for Capital Sports Promotions. There it is. I think it's Milo Huertas is how he pronounces it. And he's actually, I think he's Jose Gonzalez's brother because his real name is Milo Gonzalez Huertas. And he's only 23, but he's got a couple title reigns already here with his family member there, Jose, and also with Invader number 2. So this is the stuff that's been added to the game to make it as realistic as possible. So when we play Championship Wrestling from Florida here, and we're going to make sure that these things are accurately represented and that things are right. And we'll probably try to pick up some of those wrestlers that we've added to the game. But here you go. And of course, I went through and all the proper enhancement talents are in place here also. So Championship Wrestling from Florida here is ready to rock and roll. It's all accurate now at this point. So it's key to me to have things as realistic as possible. And this one is. This one is as realistic as possible here. And you got a lot of heavyweight names here that were sent to Championship Wrestling from Florida because they were trying to hotshot. They were trying to make this territory viable again. Now, I none of us can get into Jim Crockett Jr.'s brain. And obviously, the man passed away now, so we'll never know. And I don't know if the questions were ever asked. I would be curious to know that if when he bought this territory, if he was actually planning on running this, continuing to run this as a territory. He did it first, but it was only for a few months before he shut it down. So I've always been curious to know if he bought this to do that, to actually run a second territory under his banner. We'll never know. Did something go wrong? Did he have a falling out with somebody that made him instead choose to stop sending top talent down there and to then shut the door? Or was it his plan all along to rob what talent there was in CWF, such as Rick Steiner and people like that, and just bring them to Crockett Promotions. I'd always be curious to know that. So there you go, folks. This is another introductory video with Championship Wrestling from Florida. But at least now we have things done right, and we are ready to run this properly. And of course, this is the actual schedule, same as before. This is the real schedule they ran. Maybe we'll give the actual schedule a shot now that we have some bigger name wrestlers. But as I said before, the problem with trying to run the real schedule here is you're not going to have access to all those wrestlers. So we'll have to look into it and see how we're going to do this and how we're going to do this right. So, all right, that's it for this one, folks. If you haven't done so already, please give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and share this video with your friends. Also, join us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/1987supermod. We gain new people every day. So join us over there on Facebook and talk to us about your save with version 8.0. And last but not least, if you don't have version 8.0 and you would like it, go to braddrake.net/supermod. And you can drop me a line. I'll be more than happy to send you over a link to the mod. But we do ask for a donation. Remember, all the money that is donated to Brad Drake Promotions on behalf of TEW is going to be donated to the Cauliflower Alley Club. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.